Hello, welcome back. Today I want to do another video in my series of videos looking at really what I consider to be a foundational concept in photography. That's the whole idea of contrast. And like I said before, I'm going to take a look at contrast in a number of different ways, take a number of different cuts at it. The first time, was the most obvious, contrast and tonalities, and that's the first thing we all think of. But today I want to take a different cut at it and take a look at how you can use contrast to create a sense of distance in your photos. So near and far objects. So looking at it in that way, contrast is really just fundamentally, it's a juxtaposition of two different elements, two different things that are kind of competing, creating a little bit of tension in your photos. And that tension is what makes your photo more dynamic and interesting. And in this case, helps to create a sense of depth because the viewer can see, even in that two-dimensional representation of reality, they can see that there was a near and far object. It creates a sense of three dimensions. So let's jump on over here to Lightroom and I can show you what I mean. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. Let's start here at this first image, which is a real obvious example of creating distance in an image. This is a very typical landscape image in the way that it's with a wide angle lens to create a big sense of, ambiance and scale and cool stuff going on with these clouds. But it's the simplest form of creating distance in an image, which is making sure that you've got objects close to the camera, not only the distant mountains and the sun and the tree line and all of that. You'll see this in landscape photography a lot, that when a photographer is working with a wide angle lens, they almost always have something in the foreground that kind of helps to anchor that image, and it's really creating a sense of distance. If all of the image is just those distant mountain lines in the back or the distant clouds, you really don't have an interesting image that communicates well. So this is an example of taking these small elements, in this case these flowers, and making sure that there are a number of them pretty close to the lens. So we have this, kind of, if you follow this diagonal line down along here, we have this zone of flowers that's close to the lens. So then that helps to create a sense of distance between that and the trees, and of course the ridge lines back here, the mountain and the sun, clouds. It creates a sense of scale in that image, a sense of 3D in that. So let's take another look at a different example. So here we have a very different example. This is coming in close. So this is working with a macro lens and getting in very close to this beautiful bunch of flowers here, and using basically a contrast in focus to create the sense of distance. So this was shot at f2.8, and you can see the depth of field is very shallow. I mean, you've got a few of the insides of the petals here in sharp focus, some really nice light highlighting up at the top of the flower here, but then everything else is going out, and this other bunch back here, that it's the same thing, because of the color and the general shape, but it's way out of focus. And that contrast in focus points really helps to create, in this case, a sense of distance. So it creates a three-dimensional effect, even though these two elements really aren't all that far apart in physical reality. But I was coming in close enough that it creates a sense of distance between the two when I have that limited focus. So focus is another tool that you can use in creating distance in your photos. So here's another example, and this is really a contrast in clarity. You have the bright sunlit aspens in the foreground, the bright sunlit hillsides of pine trees, and all of this area in the foreground is very bright, sunlit, high contrast. And then the mountain peaks in the background and the clouds are much more soft and muted. The mountains are a little bit hazy. They're a little bit in and out of the clouds. they are softer and not as sharp, and that contrast in clarity helps to create a sense of distance. And it's also, obviously, it's a contrast in tonality. So that kind of goes back to the original video where uh, you've got a contrast in tonalities right in the same image. And that's what helps to create a sense of distance in this type of image. So there you have it. There's 3 different ways that you can create a sense of distance in your photos, and think about it through the lens of contrast. So juxtaposing two opposing elements together. So hope that was helpful, and thanks so much for watching my video. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you are so inclined. I would love to also hear about what you think about it, what you would like to know more about. I'm always interested to know and what people want to hear about in the world of photography, what would help you out the most. So thanks again, and I'll see you around soon. If you're interested in learning more about photography, be sure to head on over to my website, CaseyChinPhotography.com, and look under the Workshops tab. I've got links for online workshops, intermediate and advanced workshops, in-person workshops, and also a workshop interest questionnaire. Let me know what you're interested in learning more about. And when you enroll in one of my workshops, you'll also have access to my Facebook group, Casey Chin Photography Workshops. This Facebook group is designed for participants in my workshops. It's a place where you can share your images, get feedback from myself and others, and build community with other people who are passionate about and interested in photography.